Hey, it's Jason here, and what we're going to do is replace this stock Volkswagen radio in my 2004 Jetta TDI with my Bluetooth Sony head unit, which I have a video on and that I installed in my previous car. Now there's a few things when it comes to this. This isn't really too hard. First of all, this is a double DIN Monsoon premium sound system. So it's different than the regular Volkswagen radios, but it's still part of Volkswagen. The difference is it's a double DIN here, so most of them are half the size, and obviously this radio is a single DIN, my Sony unit here. So what I needed to do was purchase a little sleeve cover here, which will sit in the bottom, and then the radio will sit on top, just like this, and then we'll have a little bit of pocket space, and that will allow me to use my radio. Another thing that I did was I purchased this as a whole kit, so it came with the wiring harness and everything. So I have a wiring harness here. This is what is on the back of the Volkswagen radio, and you just take the connector and connect it in here, and it came with the wire ends here that I just cut and then connected to this connector, which goes to the back of the Sony head unit. And as you can see, I'm kind of a bit of a perfectionist, so I made sure it was neat and put some zip ties in to make it look good. And that will just sit in behind here. That way I don't have to cut the actual connector, so I can always put the old radio back in. Like if I decide to sell the car and I want to take my radio with me, the next owner is going to want a radio, right? So you just put the old one back in. The cool thing about wiring harness is that the color coding is usually standard, so you can just match the colors with the colors that are on the connector for your head unit. And this is the Sony connector here. I had to purchase some keys, which you can get at an audio shop that does mobile audio for these, and they're just going to slip in the corner to remove the radio. And I also had to purchase, which was part of the whole kit, for under $30, was an antenna adapter, because this is the Volkswagen plug right here, and then it goes to your standard plug right here. Okay, so what you want to do when you have these keys is you want to slip them in the corner. One says top left, the other says top right, and then because I bought two sets, the other one says top right and top left. I'm just going to slip them in here. Top right, top left. The single DINs only need 2 keys, but because this is a double, it requires 4 keys. There we go, just like that. Now, I didn't apply too much pressure when I stuck my fingers in here because you don't want to break it off. You just gotta kind of wiggle it till it comes loose. And once we get that, the whole unit slides out. And then, of course, when you want to put it back in, you know, once you remove your keys here, you can just slide it back in and just push it till it's snug. The antenna connector, it's an L shape, and what you want to do is just take your fingers and gently pretty much pull it off like that. Be careful because you don't want to bend it, and as you can see, it's an L shape. Right here we have the back of the connector, and then this just flicks up pretty much. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, just like that. You can see there's a little grab hook in there, and then right there, once it's released, it will pull out, and there we go. Pretty much simple. Now remember not to force it, because you don't want to break this little connector here that locks it in, this little thing that moves right here, or else you're going to be in trouble. But as you can see here, it does slide, and then it just locks into place. Okay, for the wiring harness part, you just basically take the wiring harness and you want to line it up to these plugs right here. So right here, you should be able to take your fingers on the latch here, that's right here, and just lock it up. And there we go. So what I'm going to do now is take my antenna adapter here, and I'm just gonna connect it to the Volkswagen plug. It just snaps on. Now you can see there's a little clip, which I was mentioning before. Usually you put your finger under here and then hit the clip to pull it out. Just to remember that. That way it locks it in place. So my next thing is, I will connect it just to make sure that I have power. And turn my key. There we go. There is one thing I'd like to note, a little snag I ran into, and that is with the ignition wire, which is the red. The thing with the monsoon radio system is if you put this aftermarket radio in, when you turn the key on and then you turn the key and remove the key, the radio actually stays on. With the monsoon radio, what would happen is you'd put the key in, turn it on, whatever, you'd park, turn the ignition off, the radio would stay on until you actually pulled the key right out of the ignition. Now, that doesn't work with the aftermarket radio because it's a computer in the car that signals the radio that the key was pulled out of the ignition and to turn the radio off. So with that, the radio would stay constantly on. You'd have to turn it off by the power button of the radio with the aftermarket unit. But what I did here is a little bit of an electrical hack. I just bypassed this, and what I did with this little red wire that goes into the connector here is I ran a wire right underneath the steering wheel all the way along the panel to the fuse panel over here. And what I did here was connect it to this fuse, which is the wipers fuse. And basically when the ignition is on, this wire is powered, and then when the ignition gets turned off, the wire, there's no more power to the wire. So essentially there's no accessory mode with this little hack. The wire will only be powered when the ignition is in the on position, so when the car is running. And what it does is it powers the wire over here for the radio, so that when you do turn the car on, the radio does come on, and when you turn off the car, the ignition off, the radio will go off, so it won't stay on and drain your power or whatever. But you lose the functionality of the accessory mode. Now there's other stuff on Google that you can Google to look this up that's modifying the steering column, whatever. I just want something simple. The other thing that I could do is with this configuration, when the ignition is on, the radio runs. I could put a three-way switch in that if I have the switch on, that the radio will always stay on regardless of the ignition on, the key in the ignition, anything like that. And then when the switch is down, the radio will only turn on when the ignition is in the on position, which uses the three-way switch configuration. I could do that. But for now, I'm just going to run it when the car is running, and pretty much go from there. The other thing I did is I put my microphone up, and I just ran the wiring down in here, which is where the airbag is in this car, and all the way down along here. And just what I did is I got a straight blade screwdriver to just kind of tuck it in there all the way along, and then underneath the paneling all the way to here. Okay, so now what we can do is slip this into place. Just like that. Very simple. We're going to slip the unit in here. What we should be able to do now is slide the radio in, and should be able to, just like that. Put the radio in, give the key a turn. There we go. We have our Sony head unit installed. There you have it. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave a comment in the section below or email questions@macintech.net. So if you like the video that you've seen, why not subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/macintech, and we'll chat at you later.